It's no secret that college students struggle with sleep. In one study, it was found that nearly 60% were categorized as poor quality sleepers by the PSQI. Students classified as poor quality sleepers reported significantly more problems with physical and psychological health than did good quality sleepers. But sleep is definitely very overrated, right? You don't actually need that much sleep. The 7 to 8 hour recommendation is really flawed, and you function fine on just 6 to 5 hours of sleep most nights. Plus, some coffee will definitely fix most of your problems that you'll experience. And plus, studying a couple more hours or being with friends is definitely much more fun and much more productive than getting a couple more hours of sleep. Right? Actually, no. The research would completely disagree with you in almost every single aspect. It turns out that poor sleep has not only been associated with a drop in GPA, steeper than drops associated with drug use and alcohol use, but has also been associated with severe mental health issues, severe physical health problems, and while coffee can help occasionally, you can really quickly develop a tolerance to it that will make it ineffective within a matter of weeks. Now, most kids will have three main things that they'll say when you tell them that they need to sleep more. They'll either say that they don't need sleep, that they already sleep enough, or that they just don't have the time. So what we're going to do in this video first is break down those three myths, and then we'll go over some practical tips on how you can increase the quality and quantity of your sleep at night. So let's start with the first myth, that you don't really need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, there is one rare genetic mutation that allows some individuals to achieve around 6 hours of sleep and still maintain perfectly great mental and physical health. However, you are not one of those individuals. For every 100,000 people, only 4 people have this gene. You have a greater chance of dying in a car accident than you do of having this rare gene. But I hear you protest. You say that you can function just fine on 6 hours of sleep. You've been able to do great on exams, you've been able to hang out with your friends and be perfectly fine. The sleep stuff is really overrated. But what's funny is that research will actually say that you're really bad at telling how sleep deprived you are when you are sleep deprived. In one study that looked at college students specifically, they divided the college students up into two groups. One that was sleep deprived that went 24 hours without any sleep, and then another group that got 8 hours of sleep. Both of these groups performed various cognitive tasks in order to see how well they would perform and what effect sleep deprivation had on them. Now, as expected, the sleep deprived group performed significantly worse than the group that did get sleep. What was interesting though is that this sleep deprived group actually rated their performance as high, if not higher, than the group that actually did get enough sleep. They thought that they did just as well, even though the results said otherwise. And again, this study was replicated in a slightly more longer term study that looked at sleep deprivation over a period of 2 weeks. In this study, there were two groups, one that slept for 6 hours every day and then one that slept for 8 hours every day. Both groups performed various cognitive tests, again to measure how their cognitive performance was doing over the course of the 2 weeks. And again, a similar thing happened. The 6 hour group tended to rate their performance as not declining, even though it actually was declining significantly. Whereas the 8 hour group, again, would rate their performance consistently, but their performance also matched up with how they were rating their performance. If they said that they were doing pretty well on cognitive tests, it usually meant that they actually were. So the main takeaway is that your cognitive performance significantly declines when you're sleep deprived, but you will not notice it. And one meta-analysis summed this up really well when they said, I quote, "This perception of improved performance following sleep deprivation may in part explain why it can be challenging to get students to change their sleep behavior. If students perceive no impairment in performance due to lack of sleep, they have little motivation to change." End quote. Now let's dive into the "I already get enough sleep." This is not as common of an excuse. Most people will agree that they need more sleep than they are getting. However, there are some interesting things that we can still dive into here. If you think that you're getting enough sleep now, chances are that you aren't. This one study found that nearly 36% of college students are getting less than 7 hours of sleep. And again, this was self-reported, which is important to note because another study found that people tend to over-report their sleep significantly by as much as 1.3 hours. So if you think that you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, you might actually be getting closer to 6 to 7, again, which is not in the range that we want to be. What I would recommend is that you try something like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or another device that tracks your sleep, because that'll be a much more accurate way to measure your sleep, so you'll get a better understanding of if you're getting enough sleep or not. And if you don't have access to one of those devices, a simple way to tell how your sleep is doing is just to see how tired you get throughout the day. If you're constantly tired, if you constantly need more energy, you need to increase your sleep. And again, we'll get into that in the second section of this video where we talk about how you can increase your sleep. Now, the third and final myth we're going to dive into is the I don't have enough time to sleep more. This is probably one of the most commonly held myths by so many students, but it is completely wrong. Now, first we'll dive into this one study that attempted to do exactly this, to prove to students that they did have enough time to sleep more and that when they did sleep more, they were able to see a better academic performance, because many students will sacrifice sleep for studying. In this one study, this professor incentivized his students to sleep more. If they were able to sleep for around 8 hours a day consistently for 2 weeks before their exam, they would be awarded extra credit. 24 students participated in this challenge, and those who did nearly 5 points better than those who did not. And this grade increase still came into play when looking at pre-final grades. And of course, this grade difference on the final was barring any extra credit that was awarded. And again, if you still think that you don't have enough time, another study found that students spend nearly 8 to 10 hours on their phone every single day, with 90 minutes alone on just texting. So again, ask yourself, how much time are you really spending on things? And again, if you feel like you don't have enough time to do things, your poor sleep might be the reason that you don't have enough time to do all the things that you want to do. When you have poor sleep and you have this decline in cognitive performance, in mood, and in energy, it just becomes harder to do everything, and everything takes way longer, which leads to you being more overwhelmed, which leads to less sleep, and it's this kind of chain of events that keeps happening. Just try going a few weeks and prioritizing your sleep over everything else, and you'll definitely notice that it's way easier to get things done, you have way more energy, and you're way more motivated. And even after all this, if you still doubt that sleep is essential, there's one study that might change your mind. In one study, it was found that a lack of sleep induced by a late night of work, similar to what most students will do when they're cramming, is, I quote, comparable with impairment associated with a 0.04 to 0.05 gram % blood alcohol concentration. This is enough to get you a DUI if you're under 21. So again, ask yourself, do you want to show up tipsy to your next exam? Or would you rather just sacrifice a couple of hours of studying to get some high quality sleep in and do significantly better? Again, you have to understand that those extra couple hours of sleep are not going to give you better academic performance. They are going to lower your academic performance significantly, and they're going to make the rest of your life outside of academics significantly worse. So now let's move into what are some practical tips to get in a good night's sleep. The number one tip that I can give you that a lot of college students are going to hate to hear is that you need to sleep and wake up at the same exact time every day. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to go to sleep early and wake up early. You can go to sleep whenever and you can wake up whenever, just do it at the same time. Make sure it's consistent. If this means going to bed at 3 a.m. and waking up at 11 a.m., that's absolutely fine. Irregular bedtime schedules are found to have an extremely detrimental impact on your sleep quality and your sleep quantity. If you also have a really hard time falling asleep, having this regular schedule will make it so that it's way easier to fall asleep much faster. And again, you'll have to spend less time on sleep if you stick to this regular schedule. Another really big and obvious tip is to avoid caffeine before bed. But again, the time window for when you should not have caffeine is really large. The research shows that the half-life of caffeine is around 3 to 7 hours, but again can be longer if you ingest large amounts of caffeine. So again, I would recommend no caffeine about 10 to 12 hours before bed. This is a large amount of time, but again, keep in mind that one huge hit of caffeine can last you a really long time if you pair it with things like tyrosine. And again, your sleep is more important. You might feel a little bit groggy and it might be hard to get used to at first, but keep in mind the huge benefits that come from getting a better night's sleep. Watch out for hidden caffeine sources. Things like soda have a little bit of caffeine, and if you have them with your dinner, it might make it harder to fall asleep. I found that when I cut out nighttime sodas, that really helped me a lot. Another really great way to improve your sleep quality, and again just improve your overall health, is meditation. Meditation has been proven time and time again to be incredibly beneficial for your mental health and for your physical health, and it is really good for sleep. You can get started with an app like Headspace with as little as 3 to 5 minutes a day, and then slowly build that habit up over time. You can even incorporate this into your nighttime routine to help you relax so that you can fall asleep more easily. Another huge tip is to get some exercise in throughout the day. This doesn't have to be anything crazy, just 10 to 20 minutes of some jogging, that's more than enough. As long as you're getting some form of consistent regular exercise, that's all that matters. You can slowly increase this exercise if you want, but again, exercise is not just good for sleep, sleep, it's good for so many other things in life that I would recommend it regardless. Now, 3 quick tips that I'm gonna give that aren't super well backed by research, but that might be helpful to you are zinc and magnesium supplementation. Zinc and magnesium have been found to be linked to sleep, but we don't really know their exact role and how well they actually work. So go ahead and try it out if you're really struggling with sleep, even after all the tips I've outlined before, and if you think that your diet might be missing magnesium and zinc sources. And another kind of tip that isn't really backed by research incredibly well, but has been shown to improve sleep quality anecdotally frequently, is weighted blankets. A lot of people will swear by weighted blankets, and I definitely am one of them. I absolutely love my weighted blanket. Just go ahead and try it out. They're not a huge investment. You can get one for around $60, and again, if it improves your sleep quality by a lot, it is definitely worth it. Well, it's hard to buy things on a college budget. Trust me, getting better sleep is worth any amount of money. And now some quick personal / anecdotal tips that I have. There is some research backing this, but again, these are just things that I've noticed really help me. The number one thing is avoiding food 3 to 4 hours before bed and avoiding water 3 to 4 hours before bed. Now, this window can be smaller for you, and you can have a small, around like a 150 calorie meal right before bed. That has been shown to help some people, but again, the literature is rather inconclusive on the effects on sleep quality and quantity when it comes to meals right before bed. I would recommend just avoiding them because I know for me, it's a lot harder for me to fall asleep. And again, just avoid having big meals really close to your bedtime. And then 3 big tips that were really helpful for me were blackout curtains, eye masks, and keeping your room temperature cooler. This can be achieved using a fan. Blackout curtains are relatively cheap, and eye masks are as well. And then the biggest tip that I would say is to have an hour set aside just for you to unwind and to fall asleep. Do a couple of small things that you enjoy that help you relax, like reading, listening to some calming music, some stretching, some yoga, even meditation, things like that that help you relax, and just do them on a regular, consistent basis. And then give yourself about 30 to 40 minutes just to fall asleep. So be on your bed about 30 to 40 minutes before you actually plan to fall asleep. This is one of the biggest tips that I can give, because typically what students will do is if they want to sleep from, let's say, 11 to 7, they will be in bed by 11. But again, it's going to take you a little bit of time to fall asleep. The actual amount of sleep that you get will be significantly reduced. So try to be in bed about 30 to 40 minutes before you want to actually fall asleep. So I hope that a lot of these tips will be useful to you, and I hope that you have a better understanding of why sleep is so essential and important to you if you want to do better in college and if you want to have better physical and mental health. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.